L. Frank Baum's The Wonderful Wizard of Oz was first published in 1900 and is considered a landmark work in children's literature, American literature, and the fantasy genre as a whole. It was a critical and commercial hit when it was first published and spawned 13 sequel novels, all written by Baum and now in the public domain. Over a century later, that one turn of the century children's book has spawned countless adaptations, spin-offs, and derivative works in literature, comic books, toys, board games, video games, and of course, film and television. I was inspired to make this series by James Rolfe's reviews of the first three Oz books and their corresponding film adaptations, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz from 1939 and Return to Oz from 1985. In that two-part review, James lamented the fact that the Oz books never got adapted into a singular film franchise like Harry Potter or The Lord of the Rings. This is largely because Hollywood studios like to adapt properties to which they have exclusive rights rather than public domain properties that anyone can adapt. However, for independent filmmakers such as James and myself, the public domain is our friend. Storytellers of all sorts have been proudly adapting and reinterpreting public domain stories to tell new, personal stories with recognizable characters for centuries. The 14 original Oz books are in the public domain, and since there have been numerous adaptations of the Land of Oz on film and television, I thought it would be valuable for the next generation of filmmakers and storytellers to see how other artists have interpreted and reinterpreted this amazing fantasy world and told some of the most cherished stories in the history of the moving image. Every day in October, I will be reviewing a different Oz-related film or TV adaptation, analyzing the ways that the new work makes use of L. Frank Baum's original work to tell a new or interesting story, and how well the new work does or doesn't succeed at what it sets out to be. So strap on your silver shoes or ruby slippers, tap your heels together 3 times, and sing to yourself, "There's no time like Oztober." Let's start off Oztober with the very first Oz film adaptation, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz from 1910. To modern audiences who are so used to the 1939 film and its glorious Technicolor and with its array of catchy songs, a silent film version of the story in black and white might seem strange and weird. But the beauty of the silent era is that the rules of the medium were still being created. They had no computers, no CGI, no nonlinear editing systems, no widescreen, no color, no sound, no nothing. All they had were the visuals and the music that would play live in the movie theater. As such, films from the silent era have a hypnotic, mysterious quality today. Some of the best and most important films of all time are from the period before the advent of sound and color. Anyway, in these maverick days of cinema, the imaginations of artists were able to roam free as they paved the way for future generations of filmmakers. L. Frank Baum's Oz books had become huge hits on the printed page. He knew that the emerging medium of film would be a perfect place for his fantastical stories to come to life. However, this particular Oz film was based on the 1902 stage musical rather than one of Baum's books. It takes the most inspiration from The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, but some characters such as Mombi the Witch, called Mamba here for some reason, make appearances as well. Oddly enough, the Scarecrow comes to life in Kansas before Dorothy gets whisked away to Oz. How weird is that? Some other farm animals come along for the ride, and Toto eventually gets transformed from a real dog into a furry. Okay. Toto and the equally furry Cowardly Lion even have a little fight, but they hug it out afterwards, which is adorable. There's also a particularly mischievous donkey, which will be a running theme in the Oz adaptations of the silent era. This film is only 15 minutes long, so it would nowadays be called a short film. But the rules of what constituted a feature-length film were not fully in place yet. Films were still largely considered a sideshow novelty rather than a fully realized art form. I'm a huge fan of the silent era, so I had a particular love for this film, especially since it had to lay the groundwork for all future Oz adaptations. Watching a silent film is like contacting another dimension. There's something ghostly about the world that they create. This may not be for everyone in the 21st century, but if you're really intent on studying the history of film, they have to be included. The nice thing is that films from the silent era are so old that they've fallen into public domain themselves, so you can check this film out for yourself on YouTube, which is what I did. So, that's our first entry in what's sure to be an exciting month of Oztober. Some really interesting Oz adaptations came out during this period, and with the direct involvement of L. Frank Baum through his Oz Film Manufacturing Company. Tune in tomorrow as we dive into the first of those, The Patchwork Girl of Oz.